Part 40. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 391. After listening to Li Qing's words, everyone opened their mouths in shock. They did not expect that Li Qing's plan was so big. This idea is not that no one has tried it, but the things involved are very complicated, especially the complicated gang forces, and the relationship is not easy to coordinate. Moreover, this hotel is obviously challenging the authority of High Table. It is unclear whether High Table will allow New World Hotel to exist for a long time. Ahem, did I hear you correctly? Mr. Li Qing, do you want to set up a safe house similar to the Continental Hotel? The middle-aged man wearing gold-rimmed glasses stood up and asked. Yes, to be precise, I want to build a sanctuary for gang members. Li Qing held the table with both hands and looked around. Of course, the New World Hotel in Gotham City is only in the trial operation stage. We will further improve the hotel rules in the future to make everyone feel at ease. Li Qing patted his chest and assured. People in the conference room started discussing in twos and threes. If it can really protect our safety, it's a good idea. Don't make trouble, will the High Table agree? Haha, this is a corner of the High Table. Let's take a look and talk about it. I think it's quite interesting. After all, no one can guarantee whether the accident will happen tomorrow. I think it's okay. At least if there is an accident, we will have a shelter, right? After hearing these discussions, Li Qing, Jaina, and Alex looked at each other and smiled. As long as they don't express any clear objection, half the battle is won. Ahem, but this matter still depends on everyone's efforts. Li Qing cleared his throat and chuckled. Others were a little surprised after hearing this. They didn't quite understand what Li Qing meant. The hotel was obviously jointly established by three parties, so why did they have anything to do with it? Mr. Li Qing, I wonder how we can help, someone asked curiously. Haha, here are all the gangs in Gotham City. The safety of the New World Hotel cannot be guaranteed by the three of us. Li Qing pointed at Jaina and Alex and spread his hands. You mean? Yes, I hope that everyone here will sign a contract. Regardless of any hatred, no killing will be allowed in the New World Hotel. If it is violated, it will become a target for all of us. Li Qing finally expressed his thoughts, and told him that he wanted to bring in all the local snakes in Gotham City. Only in this way can the safety of New World Hotel be completely guaranteed. When everyone heard Li Qing's words, hesitation began to appear on their faces. They were not worried about anything else, but they were just a little worried about the High Table. After all, they are afraid of being sanctioned for doing such a small trick under the High Table. I know what you are afraid of, but this has nothing to do with the High Table. There is no conflict between the business of the Continental Hotel and the New World Hotel. What's more, the New World Hotel also has members of the High Table as shareholders. Li Qing glanced at Meng Sun, who was in a daze. Meng Sun raised his head and glanced at Li Qing, meeting Li Qing's eyes. Meng Sun rubbed his teeth and said, No, it seems that this little fox has tricked me again. Everyone was stunned after hearing what Li Qing said. They felt that Li Qing was right, but they also felt that something was wrong. At this time, Alex spoke first. I support Your Excellency Li Qing's suggestion. After saying that, he picked up the pen and signed his name on the contract. Then Gianna signed her name without hesitation. Then Winston, Bowery. Gang leaders, big and small, signed their names on the contract one after another. Now it seems that they have nothing to lose by signing this contract. Maybe they will end up staying at the New World Hotel. Four of them made eye contact and shook their heads secretly. Sorry, I can't sign. I don't trust the New World Hotel to guarantee my safety. To be honest, I only trust my own guns. Mr. Li Qing, I'm sorry, I can't sign it either. You know, I have to go back to discuss it. Excuse me. The leaders of the 4 small gangs who did not agree to sign the contract stood up almost at the same time to express their opinions. Li Qing was not angry, but looked at the 4 people with a smile. These 4 people were all black, and they were obviously related to the black man with dreadlocks just downstairs. Okay, this contract is completely voluntary. We will not force anyone. Li Qingliang showed the contract in his hand and looked at the 4 people with a smile. However, the atmosphere in the conference room stagnated, making the 4 of them feel a little uncomfortable, especially since the New World Hotel had just confiscated their guns. The 4 of them did not dare to stay longer and immediately said goodbye. Li Qing did not stop them, but asked Zhang Dongzi Yulai to send them out of the hotel. After the 4 of them walked out of the hotel, Li Qing sat down again and said, "Okay, we are all our own now. Let's move on to the second topic." Jaina and Alex looked at Li Qing in surprise. They didn't know what the second issue was. The second topic is to discuss the ownership of the 4 blocks in Harlem. As soon as Li Qing's words came out, the whole place fell silent, and everyone looked at him in surprise. Everyone knew that Harlem was a famous black area, but what surprised them was that the 4 black people who had just left were the leaders of the 4 neighborhoods in Harlem. Some people's minds turned quickly, and they understood what Li Qing meant in an instant. This is to kill the 4 people who just walked out? Li Qing smiled and raised the contract in his hand. Now we are all family members, you don't want someone to stab you in the back, right? Think about it, no one will fight in the New World, only these 4 are exceptions. What if one day Harlem? Li Qing didn't finish his words, just smiled mysteriously. Other gang leaders, especially the black leaders of other blocks in Harlem, began to think about something in their hearts. Ahem, I think what Mr. Li Qing said makes sense, those 4 people are always a hidden danger. The leader of one of the blocks in Harlem said. I think so too, otherwise there must be no such people. I have long disliked the 4 of them. No one else said anything, only a few gang leaders in Harlem stood up and said indignantly. Okay, you guys can handle the Harlem issue by yourselves. If needed, we at New World can also help. Li Qing raised his eyebrows and said with a smile. No need, it's just a small matter, how can we trouble Mr. Li Qing? Yes, we can handle it ourselves. I'll handle it right away. Those people were afraid that Li Qing would come over to grab a piece of the pie, so they hurriedly said. After all, there's a lot of money in the 4 blocks. Meng Sun looked at Li Qing seriously, and secretly complained in his heart, this young man is amazing, he can gather these scattered sands together, and this New World Hotel may not be impossible to succeed. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 392. The leaders of the 4 black gangs took their pistols from the waiters, walked out of the New World Hotel, and kept mumbling as they walked on the street. Li Qing of the New World takes himself too seriously. Doesn't he know that this is a free and beautiful country? That's right, I'm afraid it's a bit whimsical to use China's method of banning guns here. Wait, the high table won't let him go. 3 of them were belittling the New World Hotel, and only one bald black man remained silent. Hey, Howard, why don't you say anything? Your cousin was beaten just now. The bald man named Howard glanced at them and shook his head. I don't think things are that simple. Let's go back to our neighborhood quickly. Although Howard looks tall and thick, his brain is much better than others. He didn't agree to sign the contract only because New World beat his cousin. Come on, Howard, are you afraid of the New World? Don't worry, this is a beautiful country, not Southeast Asia. Howard, you coward, if you are really scared, you can go back now. Others shook their heads and laughed at Howard's timidity. Howard didn't speak, but walked directly towards his car. Now he didn't want to stay here for a moment. He wanted to return to his neighborhood quickly. After all, that's the safest place. The other three watched Howard drive away quickly, but laughed loudly at his cowardice on the street. As everyone knows, their lives have begun to count down from now on. Half an hour later, the gang leaders from Harlem who had come out of the New World gathered together. They began to study tonight's operation. "Leave Howard's block to me. I won't interfere with the other 3 blocks," said a short black man with a skull tattooed on his neck. "Why? Everyone knows that the Howard block has the most oil and water, and the largest flour shipments. What will we get if you take them all?" Someone immediately raised objections and disagreed with him. After all, everyone present is extremely familiar with Harlem. You must know that the people in the Howard neighborhood are considered the richest, and the income of the other 3 neighborhoods combined is not even more than 2/3 of his. After arguing for a long time, a group of people finally discussed the distribution of the 4 blocks. At this time, Li Qing, Jaina, and Alex were watching the scene with a smile upstairs. "You see, as long as we bring in the majority of people, we don't need to take action on some things, and they will naturally find an excuse to get rid of the opponents." Li Qing picked up 2 glasses of wine with both hands and handed them to Jaina and Alex respectively. The 2 also smiled, took the wine glasses and touched each other with Li Qing. Their first step of the plan was completed. Taking the lead through 3 gangs can be considered as bringing the entire Gotham City gang into the gang. Of course, this loose alliance is of little use. But it can keep the New World Hotel in Gotham City running normally. Li Qing wants to make the New World Hotel the first choice for non-Gotham gangs to stay in Gotham City. Gotham City is just the beginning, and New World hotels in other cities will also bring in local gangs. Wish us success. Cheers. Cheers. The 3 of them raised their glasses at the same time and drank the wine happily. Dong dong, there was a knock on the door. "Come in." When Zhang Dongzhou heard his elder brother's voice, he quickly walked in, came to Li Qing's ear and whispered in Li Qing's ear, "Brother, Meng Sun from the Hungmen Association has not left and wants to see you." Hearing this, Li Qing glanced at Zhang Dongzhou and nodded thoughtfully. Jaina and Alex looked at each other and bid farewell to Li Qing knowingly. Li Qing also smiled and sent the 2 of them out of the door, making an appointment for the next party. After the 2 of them left, Zhang Dongzhou brought Meng Sun in. "Haha, little friend Li Qing, you are so awesome. I didn't expect that in a short period of time, I expelled De Mao, and now I am starting to poach the high table. Meng Sun walked in with a smile. The corner of Li Qing's mouth rose. "President Meng, I have defeated the rich gang, I admit it. This can be regarded as removing a cancer for the Chinese people. As for expelling the big hair gang, where do we start? As for digging into the corner of the high table, this is simply it's nonsense. Be careful, I'll sue you for slander." Li Qing spread his hands and said innocently. When Meng Sun heard Li Qing's words, a trace of embarrassment flashed across his face. After all, they had always watched with cold eyes as the wealthy gangs harmed the Chinese. Suddenly hearing Li Qing talk about the rich gang, he felt a little embarrassed. Back then, the rich gangs wantonly harmed the Chinese, and there was some element of their connivance. "Haha, little friend Li Qing, you are young and have such a big situation. Your achievements in the future are limitless." Meng Sun laughed awkwardly, quickly changed the topic, and began to praise blindly. "Who is Li Qing?" From Meng Sun's tone, you can tell that this old fox is trying to get some benefits from him. "President Meng, if you have something to say, just say it. I'm afraid you'll always flatter me." Meng Sun looked at Li Qing with a smile, and stopped rambling, and said seriously, "Li Qing, we are all Chinese. We have the same Yan Huang bloodline. In fact, it is entirely possible for the 2 of us to cooperate in establishing New World Hotel. Outsiders cannot be trusted. Meng Sun started directly from the Chinese bloodline and began to explain to Li Qing the point of view that people who are not of my race must have different hearts. Li Qing just listened with a smile and didn't answer anything. It wasn't until Meng Sun's lips were blistered by what he said that Li Qing handed him a cup of tea. "President Meng, have a sip of tea." Li Qing also understood what Meng Sun meant, which was nothing more than to get a foothold in New World Hotel's shares. To be honest, Li Qing really doesn't need the Hungmen Association. Among the large and small forces in the beautiful country, Hungmen's ranking is not too low. The limitations are too great. They only have their influence in Chinatowns everywhere. What's more, New World's reputation is now rising and it is slowly gaining recognition in the Chinese circle. In a few more years of development, Hungmen may not be as powerful as overseas. But there is one thing Li Qing also thought of, and that is Hungmen's power in South America. Hungmen has 30 organizations throughout the Americas, including nearly 20 in South America, so Hungmen's strength in South America cannot be underestimated. If the New World only develops in the beautiful country, Hungmen may not be needed, but if it involves the whole world, Hungmen will really have to get involved. I understand what President Meng means, so be it. The New World Hotel in South America will open in a while, and it will also need the support of the Hungmen brothers there. Meng Sun instantly understood what Li Qing meant. Don't think about North America. You can still cooperate with South America. No problem, as long as our Hungmen brothers are of use, Li Xiao can just speak up. Although it did not reach Meng Sun's expected goals, the current results are not bad. If this New World Hotel is completed, they will be considered as part of it. After sending Meng Sun away in person, Li Qing returned to the room and rubbed his tingling temples. "Brother, this old guy has gone too far. Now he wants to get a share of the pie. He wanted to occupy our territory at first." 7 crows said angrily and 8 refused. "Haha, Crow, you have to remember that there are no eternal friends, only eternal interests. Even if they have the same blood flowing through them." Li Qing said quietly while sitting on the boss's chair. "You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all." Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 393. Harlem is the largest black gathering area in Gotham City, with a total population of 330,000, most of whom are black. There are also a large number of drug dealers, drug addicts, thieves, murderers, gang members. Take West 140th Street in Harlem as an example. There are 36 apartments here, 8 of which have become the nests of drug dealers, and there is a trend of slow expansion. It can be said that the entire Harlem is a small crime city, where rape, robbery, murder, are rampant every day. Even the beautiful country of Faber keeps a distance from it. In the past, the sirens here were constantly heard at night, but tonight it was very abnormal. It seemed as if the whole district was asleep, and there were not even a few gang members who usually shouted on the road. Howard sat at his home on East 10th Street with an uncertain mind, and he was too lazy to even touch his favorite blueberry pie on the table. "Hey, Jack, why is there no sound outside? Go and take a look," Howard shouted to his brother, the black man with dreadlocks who was knocked unconscious in the morning. His gang members basically live around his house, and his house is the base of the gang. This is also the practice of the American gangs, who often use their homes as the base of the gang. "Howard, don't be so nervous, this is our territory. Besides, you just rejected the invitation of the New World Hotel." His brother Jack touched his cheek, which was still a little painful, and said indifferently. Jack thought his brother must have been scared by someone. Their gang has ruled here for more than 10 years, and no one has ever been able to knock them down here. Damn it, if you hadn't caused trouble, would I have refused to sign? Howard said dissatisfiedly. Okay. My dear cousin. Jack shrugged and walked towards the door in slippers. Okay, Howard, calm down. His wife also saw Howard's abnormality and comforted him patiently. Howard glanced at his wife. Honey, have you prepared the things I asked you to prepare? The wife looked at Howard's serious look and nodded. Don't worry, I'm ready. Why hasn't Jack come back yet? Howard frowned and muttered softly. Don't worry, we are all outside, his wife whispered. Bang! The sound of gunfire suddenly rang out from outside, followed by 4 gunshots. Damn it! Howard jumped up from the chair and quickly pulled out his pistol. Hurry up and take the children with me through the back door. Obviously Howard was well prepared and quickly moved to the back door with his wife and children. The battle at the front door was fierce, and gunshots continued to ring. Howard could only fight back with the cover in the house. But it was obvious that the invading enemy was not just one group of people. Damn it, I knew it would be like this. Howard pushed his wife and children into the car and stepped into the driver's seat. His idea now was to protect his wife and children. Boom! The explosion of the grenade sounded, and a big hole was instantly blown out of the wooden house, and the sundries in the house were ignited. Jack! Howard shouted loudly. Hurry, Howard is there, don't let him escape. Bang bang! The bullets hit the car door continuously, leaving several bullet holes. Howard didn't care about anything else, and hurriedly started the car. As soon as he stepped on the accelerator, the car rushed out with a whoosh sound like a bow and arrow. Ding ding ding. Bullets kept hitting the trunk of the car, causing the wife and children to exclaim. Looking at the car going away, the others were unwilling to let Howard go, and got in the car and started chasing him. Howard finally drove out of number 10 Street, took the opportunity to look at the rearview mirror, and breathed a sigh of relief. Thank God, they didn't catch up. Dad, where are we going? The little daughter cried in her mother's arms. Don't be afraid, dear, Howard comforted. At this time, gunshots rang out in the neighboring blocks, and there should be fierce exchanges of fire. Howard suddenly heard the 4 blocks where the contract was not signed. Is it just because the contract was not signed? Howard felt a surge of regret in his heart. It was just a name. If he had known earlier, wouldn't he have signed it first? Howard, they are catching up. His wife's reminder brought Howard back to his senses. Bitch. Howard looked at the car getting closer and closer in the rearview mirror. Bang bang! The gunshots came from the car behind. Howard lowered his head and stepped on the accelerator to drive forward. Howard didn't know where to go now, and the people chasing him behind him were getting closer and closer. Damn, let's try our best to go to the New World Hotel. Howard drifted into the Champs-Élysées, which was 5 blocks away from the New World Hotel. I hope it's still in time. Fortunately, it was late at night and there were few vehicles on the street, otherwise they would not be able to escape the pursuit from the opposite side. Bitch, he's going to the New World Hotel, stop him. The gang members in the car behind also saw Howard's intention. After all, the New World Hotel is Howard's only way out now. The gang members in the car behind leaned half of their bodies out of the car window, raised their guns and fired at Howard's car in front. Damn it! Howard's shoulder was bitten by a bullet, and blood quickly flowed out of the bullet hole, soaking his entire sleeve in a short time. Howard gritted his teeth and continued to control the steering wheel. There are still 3 blocks. 2 blocks. 1 block. The car was getting closer and closer to the New World Hotel. Howard's eyes began to black out due to excessive blood loss. Swish. The car braked and stopped at the door of the New World Hotel. Go, go. Howard staggered out of the car, opened the door, helped his wife and children out, and quickly ran towards the hotel entrance. Stop, the pursuers behind also arrived. Before the car stopped, they jumped out one by one and began to chase Howard. Bang! Howard's bloody hand finally pushed open the door of the hotel and fell to the ground. I want to stay. The waiter looked at it indifferently. Sir, please hand over your weapon. Howard glanced at the gun in his hand and handed it directly to the waiter. Bang! The door of the hotel was pushed open instantly, and the hostile gang members rushed in. Howard, you can't run away. Howard heard the voice and looked at the people chasing behind him. His eyes were full of despair, and his wife was helplessly holding her little daughter beside him. Gentlemen, do you want to check in? Please hand in your weapons. The waiter said with a smile. We are not staying, we are here to catch him. Not staying, the waiter drooped his face. If you don't stay, get out. Can you come to the New World Hotel whenever you want? You. Before he finished speaking, the gang member found that his body was full of infrared dots, and even his little brother had several red dots moving. Okay. I know the rules, let's go. The gang member swallowed his saliva, lowered his voice by a few decibels, and slowly backed out of the hotel. Sir, please follow me to check in, the waiter said to Howard with a smile. Karen glanced at Howard, who was half covered in blood, and said, Do you need a doctor to help you? Thank you. Howard finally realized that he and his friends were safe. Accommodation is $10,000 a day, and doctor's service is $20,000. We are a small business with little profit, and this hotel does not accept credit. Howard. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 394. The gang members who were chasing him did not dare to cause trouble in the New World Hotel and reported the entire incident to their leader. Well, you did the right thing. From now on, if you keep an eye on me outside the New World Hotel, I won't believe that Howard won't come out. But remember, if you don't want to die, don't make trouble inside the New World Hotel, otherwise I won't be able to protect you. The leader said with a serious expression. Through this incident, he discovered that the three parties' joint establishment of the New World Hotel was not just for fun. If he really hits the muzzle of the gun, Howard's fate will be his own fate in the future. A tiger without claws and teeth is worse than a sick cat. This incident also allowed New World Hotel to build its own brand, and the hotel's business gradually got on the right track, with an endless stream of guests. Even the reputation of the New World Hotel has become popular among wealthy circles in Gotham City. Some rich people who feel that they have safety problems directly bring their families to stay at the New World Hotel for a long time. Anyway, they are not short of money. Li Qing was relieved to see that the New World Hotel was on the right track. Everything was difficult at the beginning, but as long as the first step was taken well, the road ahead would get easier and easier. But what has always worried him is that there has been no movement on the elder's side. He can only be a thief for 1,000 miles, but there is no way to guard against a thief for 1,000 days. So he directly asked John Wick to go to the Middle East to investigate the elder's affairs, because the elder's identity is now known to be a big shot in the Middle East. Brother, when will sister-in-law arrive? Crow raised his head and kept looking towards the airport entrance. The sister-in-law in the crow's mouth is Mao Xianmin, and Mao Xianmin happened to come to the beautiful country of Angel City to discuss business during this time. I haven't seen Li Qing for a long time, so I came to Gotham to meet with Li Qing first. Li Qing leaned against the car door and looked at his watch, frowning and said, It should be 8:20 in the evening. I guess the plane may be delayed. Sure enough, after waiting for about 20 minutes, I saw Mao Xianmin walking out with a large suitcase. The younger brothers all stepped forward and bowed. Hello, sister-in-law. The discerning Zhang Dongzhi quickly stepped forward to take the suitcase, while Mao Xianmin dropped the suitcase and ran towards Li Qing. Ye Guilou slipped into his arms, and Li Qing hugged her firmly. Bad guy, do you miss me? Mao Xianmin smelled the slight smell of tobacco on Li Qing and rubbed his chest affectionately with his head. Think. Li Qing rubbed Mao Xianmin's head, and then hugged her body hard. This little girl must have gained some weight. Miss me? You don't go to see me either, Mao Xianmin pouted and said dissatisfiedly. Li Qing was also a little unreasonable. After all formal projects in South Korea were given to a woman named Mao Xianmin, which really affected Mao Xianmin. Tell me, did you find another little vixen? Mao Xianmin punched Li Qing's chest. If Mao Xianmin's subordinates saw this, they would definitely be shocked. They would never have thought that Mao Xianmin, who has always been a strong woman, would have such a feminine side. Li Qing smiled awkwardly and quickly changed the subject. Hey, why are you alone this time? Where are the people in the company? Mao Xianmin rolled his eyes at Li Qing and let him go without wanting to embarrass his man. I asked them to go to Angel City first. After all, there are still many things there that need to be prepared in advance. This time Mao Xianmin went there mainly to discuss chip issues. New World Electronics' own chip research and development has reached a bottleneck, and now it is seeking cooperation with the beautiful country. Let's go home first. Li Qing kissed Mao Xianmin's forehead and got into the car with her. The car quickly arrived at Li Qing's villa from the airport. Mao Xianmin looked at the environment in the villa curiously. There were New World members with guns and ammunition everywhere, and even the rooftops of the villas had people on guard. Li Qing saw Mao Xianmin's curiosity. The beautiful country is different from other places, so security is relatively strict. After hearing this, Mao Xianmin shook her man's hand distressedly. She knew that Li Qing must be in danger here. Don't worry, no one in this world can kill me. Li Qing gently patted his woman's hand and comforted her. The two walked into the villa. Mao Xianmin looked at the interior of the villa curiously. The architectural style was no different from other villas. From a glance, he knew that Li Qing had not renovated it since he bought it. Mao Xianmin sat on the sofa and opened the suitcase. Here, Crow, this is for you. Mao Xianmin took out a new Omega watch from the suitcase and handed it to Crow. Hey, thank you, sister-in-law. Crow smiled innocently and scratched his head, took the watch and put it on his hand lovingly. Dongxiu, this is your. Ajin also has. Mao Xianmin is worthy of being a woman trained by a chaebol family, and she also has her own way of winning over her subordinates. In fact, these small gifts are not valuable, only tens of thousands of dollars in US dollars, but if there are many small favors, Li Qing's subordinates will naturally treat them differently. Did Mao Xianmin know that Li Qing had a big house in Xiangjiang, and that the one in Hejiang was also from a big family? She didn't care about it, just out of sight and out of mind. This kind of thing is nothing new among chaebols. Although South Korea is also monogamous, no chaebols have been seen to abide by the law. Now that her husband's career spans the world, she herself needs to make some plans for her future son. It has to be said that women from chaebol families want to be more far-sighted than others. Now in the hearts of old brothers like Li Qing, apart from the Hong Kong-born sister-in-law who is number one, I am afraid that the Korean sister-in-law is ranked second. People are all emotional animals. As for Xingxin, who is often absent, and Chen Shooting, who is still in college, Li Qing's old brothers still respect them very much on the surface. It cost my sister-in-law a lot of money. Gao Jin, the most shameless among them, said embarrassedly. The younger brothers thanked each other and left the villa knowingly. Li Qing and Mao Xianmin were the only two people left in the villa, and Mao Xianmin was no longer reserved. Lying directly on Li Qing's body, Mao Xian was charming Li Qing. Here, I'm going to take a shower first, and I'll prepare to hand over the public food later. Naughty. Li Qing smiled fondly and patted Mao Xianmin's butt. This made Mao Xianmin moan. The two fought fiercely until midnight before they stopped. Li Qing was also very excited. After all, he came to the beautiful country to be busy with his career, and the last time he had just had a fierce fight with a blonde cat in a hotel. How many days are you staying in Gotham? Li Qing looked at Mao Xianmin, whose face was full of lingering charm. I won't be able to stay for a few days, and I have to go to Angel City to discuss projects. Mao Xianmin took the cigarette from the bedside table, lit it himself, and then gently put it in Li Qing's mouth. How about I accompany you? Anyway, it's been fine recently. Li Qing rubbed the woman's smooth back with his fingers, wanting to take advantage of Mao Xianmin's visit to the beautiful country to accompany her. Real? Mao Xianmin asked with a surprised look on his face. So there is still a holiday? By the way, your old man has calmed down recently, right? Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 395. Well, now my father is more polite to me than to the president. Mao Xianmin shrugged helplessly and sighed. Since Li Qing did something big in Java, Mao Shanyeo's attitude towards Mao Xianmin has changed dramatically. Not only did he often take her to various chaebol parties, he also introduced her to other chaebols diligently, and Yan Ran looked like she was his heir. But Mao Xianmin knew in his heart that that was absolutely impossible. Li Qing listened to Mao Xianmin's complaint and smiled. People from the chaebol family are all smart people, and one move can have 800 thoughts. Mao Shanyeo's move is to pull the tiger's skin and pull the banner, pretending to be the tiger's power. Korean chaebols are not fools. They know Mao Xianmin is Li Qing's woman. Mao Shanyeo's business affairs were more or less involved, and he would always take him as a sign of goodwill towards Li Qing. Li Qing had also heard about this matter. He heard that after the Korean financial crisis, Mao Shanyeo's industry became more and more prosperous. Humph, your father is such an old fox. Li Qing snorted lightly, a trace of contempt flashing across his face. What? Are you angry? Mao Xianmin rested his chin on the tiger head on Li Qing's chest and looked at him with a smile. She is not a fool. Outsiders can see what her father did. Can she see it? It was just due to family ties and the fact that Mao Shanyeo was just following the New World Korea Group to drink some soup, it did not harm the interests of the New World Korea Group. So she turned a blind eye. Li Qing shaved Mao Xianmin's little nose. Am I that stingy? After all, he is your father, so he still has to live up to his reputation. As long as it does not hinder the development of the new world. Oh, don't worry, I won't be so imprudent. But having said that, I feel like my father did this for his illegitimate son. He has separated the newly developed industry from the Mao Group. My mother had a big fight with him over this. Mao Xianmin wrinkled his little nose and guessed. Well, it's possible. Li Qing nodded, thinking in his mind that it was a possible problem and that it would definitely be left to an illegitimate child, but he didn't want to get involved in the Mao family's affairs. Then the two talked about the development of New World in South Korea. Now Shinsegae Korea Group is involved in various industries such as electronics, heavy industry, logistics, retail, entertainment, etc., and has absorbed a large number of high-quality resources through the Korean financial crisis. In particular, he took the opportunity to hoard a large amount of land in major cities in South Korea and made great progress in real estate. The Kinman Group has also followed the development of the New World and slowly extended to major cities in South Korea. It is also considered to be the top gang organization in South Korea. This is all thanks to Mao Xianmin. With the momentum of New World and her own abilities, she is slowly turning New World Korea Group into a behemoth involving various industries. Although there is still some gap between it and the established chaebols such as Shenyang and Elephant, it has almost entered the first echelon of chaebols. Okay, go to bed early. I will take you around Gotham tomorrow. Li Qing took Mao Xianmin in his arms and placed his hands naturally on her high buttocks. Okay. Mao Xianmin couldn't help but arched his butt. Li Qing looked at Mao Xianmin with a smile, little goblin. Then the fighting resumed and continued until the sky began to turn white. Due to World War II, the two's plan to get up early naturally failed, and they did not get out of bed until mid-afternoon the next day. Get up soon. I'll take you to visit Chinatown later. Li Qing took a refreshing bath, looked at the lazy Mao Xianmin and chuckled. Mao Xianmin opened his hazy eyes, hugged the quilt and asked, "Don't you want to take a tour of Gotham?" Li Qing walked to the bed in a funny way and patted her half-exposed buttocks. "It's already afternoon. Get up quickly. I'll take you to Chinatown for dinner." Giluit was okay at first, but when he heard that he was going to eat, Mao Xianmin's stomach started to growl. She hasn't eaten since she had a meal on the plane yesterday. Coupled with the physical exertion of strenuous exercise, she is now unbearably hungry. "Give me 10 minutes, no, 5 minutes. Mao Xianmin combed his hair and quickly walked into the bathroom naked. Li Qing smiled and shook his head. A woman's mouth is deceptive. It's great if she can clean it up in 20 minutes. Sure enough, the waiting time was longer than he expected. After waiting for more than an hour, Mao Xianmin slowly walked downstairs. The two of them took a car directly to Chinatown. Mao Xianmin came to Gotham City's Chinatown for the first time. As soon as he got off the car, he curiously pulled Li Qing to ask questions, like a curious baby. Li Qing also patiently introduced the situation in Chinatown to her. It feels similar to Chinatown in Seoul, South Korea. After listening to Li Qing's introduction, Mao Xianmin said softly, "Indeed, Chinatowns are similar everywhere. After all, they are all Chinese, and their cultural traditions are not much different." Li Qing randomly found a dumpling restaurant and finished the meal with Mao Xianmin, Wu Wu, and others. "I planned to take a stroll in Chinatown, but as soon as I left the hotel door, I met a group of people talking noisily. Several Middle Easterners seemed to have gotten into an argument with the store clerk over their purchases. You are committing fraud. What we want is nitric acid, which is not the same thing anyway. We want to return it." One of them, a bearded Middle Eastern man wearing a black peaked cap, suddenly lowered his voice and said. The clerk spread his hands helplessly and explained, "We really don't have the fertilizer you want. What we give you is a substitute, but don't worry, the effect is the same." Li Qing frowned. "Crow, go over and ask what's going on." Crow nodded, pushed the crowd and walked up. The crowd was a little unhappy at first. But after seeing the face of the person coming, the others hurriedly bowed their heads and greeted him. "Brother Crow. Brother Crow is here." Crow nodded, walked forward to understand the situation, and hurried back to report to Li Qing. It turned out that this group of Middle Eastern people came to the grocery store to buy fertilizer, but there was really nothing they wanted, so the clerk recommended something with similar effects, and the Middle Eastern people came back to ask the clerk for an explanation. After Li Qing understood the situation, he walked forward, and a group of people looked at Li Qing in awe. They were still qualified to say hello to Crow, but they didn't even have the courage to say hello to Li Qing. "Give the fertilizer to the clerk, and I'll ask him to return the money to you." Originally, Li Qing didn't need to intervene in this small matter, but Li Qing just felt that there was something fishy about it, so he stepped forward to observe these Middle Eastern people carefully. "The fertilizer has been used, so I feel it's wrong. How to return it?" The leader didn't say anything, but the people behind him blurted out. Li Qing's eyes condensed, "Do you want to make trouble?" When Crow, Gao Jin, and Zhang Dongxiu heard Li Qing's tone turn cold, they all stepped forward to surround these Middle Eastern people. The Middle Eastern people were indignant and began to move. But they were stopped by the bearded man who led the group, because the bearded man found that there were suddenly many people on the street looking at them with unfriendly faces, and some of them had bulging waists, obviously with weapons on them. "Sorry, we don't want it, we'll leave now." The bearded man smiled and said in poor English. After that, he took the other Middle Eastern people and left quickly. Seeing the Middle Eastern people leave in a panic, everyone began to look at Li Qing with respect, as if Li Qing was their confidence, and some people even applauded and cheered. Li Qing waved his hand, smiled and nodded to them, and slowly walked away with Mao Xianmin and others. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 396. Although Li Qing was a little confused, he didn't take it to heart. After all, this was not his own autonomous region, and sometimes being too lenient might not necessarily be a good thing. I took Mao Xianmin to visit Gotham City for 2 days in a row, and 2 days later I took a plane to accompany her to the City of Angels. The ticket was booked for flight number 12, which departed at 9 in the morning. Since the flight was booked in first class, Li Qing took Mao Xianmin, Crow, and others through the VIP channel and boarded the plane in advance. The characteristics of Air China have been brought to the extreme. The flight attendants are not only blonde, blue-eyed, and with a curvy figure, they are also very distinctive black pearls. Especially the first-class flight attendants, they are the cream of the crop. When I saw Li Qing and others walking in, the service was so meticulous. Flight attendants are not stupid. Why are they competing so hard to serve first-class passengers? Brother Qing, I'm going to make a call first. Mao Xianmin looked at the messages on his phone and wanted to call his subordinate before the plane took off. Li Qing nodded and motioned for Zhang Dongzhou to follow him for protection. Hello, sir, what would you like to drink? As soon as Li Qing sat down, a beautiful stewardess with blonde curly hair came to serve him. I saw the flight attendant squatting slightly next to Li Qing's seat, her upper body leaning forward slightly, and her advantage in the chest was used to the extreme. The huge body with rounded arcs can almost burst the upper body of the uniform, and most of the long legs under the short skirt are exposed due to the squatting posture. Li Qing was a little surprised that the stewardess actually spoke Chinese. She had obviously done some homework. A cup of green tea, please, thank you. Li Qing smiled politely and nodded. The flight attendant smiled charmingly and stood up to get ready. Brother, don't they say that white girls in beautiful countries are racist? I don't think it's that serious. The crow next door came to Li Qing in a low voice and flashed the note in his hand. It was obviously a mobile phone number. Li Qing glared at Crow angrily. You try to go to economy class, there are definitely two attitudes. As long as they are in first class, they no longer care about skin color, or even race. The crow was stunned for a moment, seemed to understand something, and threw the note into the garbage bag. No, no dogs. What are you two talking about? Mao Xianmin came over after making the call and asked curiously. It's okay, I'll spread the knowledge to the crows. Li Qing smiled and joked. Mao Xianmin glanced at them in disbelief, said nothing, and sat directly next to Li Qing. Although there is a separate compartment, she is still used to being around Li Qing. Your green tea, sir. The blonde beauty was a little disappointed when she saw Mao Xianmin next to Li Qing, but she still smiled and gently placed the teacup on the table. Mao Xianmin glanced at the stewardess and said, well, please give me a drink too. Okay, ma'am. Please wait. First-class passengers came in one after another, and they all looked like wealthy people. Li Qing didn't care about anything else, he just hugged Mao Xianmin and lay on his seat watching an old TV series Growing Pains playing on the screen. The plane vibrated slightly, then climbed, and it didn't take long before it entered the stable level. Hey, I was more handsome than Luke Ball, Leonardo, when I was a teenager, would you believe it? Li Qing pointed at Luke Ball on the screen and joked. Mao Xianmin took a serious look at the screen, and then looked at his man carefully. Xian. He looks a bit too girly. Mao Xianmin pointed at the 16-year-old Leonardo on the screen and said. I also think you are prettier than Carol, haha. You, she is an old woman born in 1969. Haha. I thought that the couple of hours journey would be spent chatting and laughing, but an accident happened. There was a loud noise from the economy class behind the isolation door, which immediately caught Li Qing's attention. Even Gao Jian, Zhang Dongziu and Wu Wu came to Li Qing's side on alert, just in case something unexpected happened. At this time, the stewardess didn't know what happened in the economy class and was about to open the isolation door between the economy class and first class. But the screams of women and men in the economy class startled everyone. Even the stewardess was too scared to open the isolation door. Ajin, are you going to take a look? Be careful. Li Qing said solemnly. Gao Jin has the best skills here. They had to go through security when flying, and this time none of Li Qing had weapons on them. Mao Xianmin glanced at Li Qing nervously and hugged his arm tightly. Gao Jin nodded, slowly approached the isolation door, and gently opened a gap. Through the gap, Gao Jin saw a scene that shocked him. He saw a few Middle Easterners with homemade bombs strapped to their bodies. What were they shouting about? A middle-aged man who had been killed was still lying on the ground, and a woman was crying next to him. The other passengers were like quails, huddled in their seats and not daring to move. Gao Jin held his breath and slowly closed the isolation door. He walked quickly to Li Qing and said, "Brother, it's not good, we encountered a hijacking. It was the group of Middle Easterners we met in Chinatown last night." Li Qing frowned, really afraid that something might happen, but he didn't expect to meet him here again. Li Qing also understood that once these people took control of the economy class, they would definitely move to the first class. Bad luck. You have to know that this is on the plane. If the bomb on the robber explodes, all of them will be killed here. Block the isolation door immediately. At Li Qing's command, Zhang Dongziu, Crow, and Gao Jin began to move sundries to block the isolation door. Fortunately, the other party did not have guns, otherwise there would be no way. You go and tell the captain to contact the ground and try to find the nearest airport. Li Qing said to the stewardess with a face full of fear. Li Qing's words woke up the stewardess, who was still in a daze. She stood up and ran towards the cockpit of the plane in a hurry. There were not many passengers in the first-class cabin. They all knew that something happened in front and were asking about the situation in front in a panic. "Sir, may I ask what happened in front? Why did you block the door?" A middle-aged man in a suit and tie and with his hair combed meticulously asked. "There was a hijacking in the economy class, and some people died. Blocking the isolation door is to prevent them from coming in." Li Qing stood up and explained in a low voice. "What? Hijacking? Oh my God! How could it be? Hijacking? Oh my God, why did it happen to me? Damn it, keep your voice down, don't let them hear it." The first-class passengers began to talk and fell into great panic for a while. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 397. Yes, let's block the isolation door. As long as the other side can't get in, they can't do anything to us. Come on, push that dolly over here. A group of people began to hurriedly search for anything that could block the door. It's useless, they have bombs. Li Qing's somewhat cold voice made everyone fall into despair. Once the bomb explodes, there is absolutely no chance of survival for everyone on the plane. At this time, the plane experienced obvious turbulence. Li Qing looked out the window and knew that the pilot was aware of the situation behind him and began to turn the plane around and fly towards the nearest airport. Damn Middle Easterners, we should have dealt with them yesterday. Crow gritted his teeth and said bitterly. Li Qing said nothing, and was thinking about what happened in his previous life. The larger terrorist attack in his previous life was the legendary Twin Towers incident in the beautiful country. But the time obviously didn't match up. He remembered that it was September, but it was only March, and the year was different. Li Qing shook his head. He could only blame it on the parallel world. Coupled with the butterfly effect caused by himself, the timeline had no reference value. If it is really related to the Twin Towers incident, it will be troublesome. This group of Middle Easterners definitely did not want to let the plane land safely. Even if he cannot threaten the captain, he will detonate his bomb before the plane lands. Damn it! For the first time, Li Qing felt that the situation was not under his control. With his physical condition, he didn't even know if he could withstand a fall from a high altitude, let alone Mao Xianmin, Crow, and others around him. Dong dong! A huge door kick sounded, and everyone in the first-class cabin tried their best to retreat until they reached the cockpit door. Only Li Qing and his party were left in the huge first-class cabin. Bang bang! The strong vibration caused the debris blocking the door to slowly fall down. Li Qing had a sullen face, knowing that the isolation door could not stop this group of Middle Easterners. Brother! The three of them stood firmly in front of Li Qing and Mao Xianmin. To move Li Qing, they had to step over their bodies. Click! The isolation door finally failed to hold up and was violently opened. The angry Middle Easterners pushed aside the debris and rushed in. But when they saw Zhang Dongxiu, Wu Wu, and Gao Jin, they were stunned for a moment, especially Zhang Dongxiu's high recognition. They instantly remembered what happened in Chinatown last night. It's you, we are really enemies of each other. The bearded leader, with a black turban on his head, smiled evilly. There is a reason why he is so angry. He does not have enough materials to make bombs. Now, except for one person, the bomb is real, and everyone else is fake. But according to the existing bomb power, I am afraid it is not enough to complete the mission. Now their primary goal is to break into the cockpit and let the captain fly according to his own route. Haha, we are indeed enemies on the same road. Li Qing chuckled and walked out slowly from behind. The bearded man instantly recognized Li Qing as the person who made them suffer a secret loss yesterday, because he would never forget that contemptuous smile. Yes, Li Qing was deliberately angry with him. He didn't have a gun on his side, and he didn't have a gun on the other side, if it weren't for the bomb on the other side. Li Qing wouldn't even give them a chance to speak. Damn it, you are still smiling when you are about to die. The person on the other side was indeed fooled and was about to come forward with a knife. Gao Jin's eyes moved, he took a few steps quickly and grasped the area with his hands. Before Big Beard could react, the knife in his hand was already held by Gao Jin and pressed against his throat. He didn't come back to his senses until his throat was cut by a sharp blade and he felt a slight sting. Don't move, or I'll cut off his head, Gao Jin shouted loudly. When the Middle Eastern robbers saw the bearded man being caught, they immediately panicked and stood still without daring to move. If you kill me if you dare, you will all die on the plane. The bearded man gritted his teeth. He was already determined to die, but he was just worried that he would not be able to complete the task assigned to him by the leader. Hearing the bearded man's cry, other Middle Easterners took out the remote control from their arms and held it in their hands. Haha, why do you have to live or die? Why don't we sit down and talk? Li Qing knew that the plane had already departed for the nearest airport. He now wanted to delay as much time as possible. As soon as the plane landed, even if the bomb exploded, he was sure that he could save Mao Xianmin and others. Talk, what do we have to talk about? The bearded man chuckled, with contempt in his tone. Gao Jin frowned, hearing that he was disrespectful to his elder brother. He raised the dogleg knife in his hand, and the blade instantly cut through the bearded skin. What to talk about? Haha, to tell you the truth, I am an arms dealer. Li Qing looked at the bearded man playfully. When the bearded man heard the word munitions, his eyes lit up. No one could compare with the persistence of Middle Easterners in arms. Chinese. The bearded man remembered that he met Li Qing and others in Chinatown yesterday, and asked tentatively. Chinese. Li Qing didn't know why the bearded man asked, and he didn't lie to him at all. I know that you people in the Middle East are in urgent need of arms. I can provide a batch of Soviet-made equipment at half price, as long as you let this aircraft go. After all, I am here. Li Qing spread his hands. The bearded man glanced at Li Qing and said nothing for a long time. I don't want Soviet-made equipment, I want Chinese-made weapons. The bearded man's words stunned Li Qing. It was the first time in all his years as an arms dealer that he heard someone specifically ask for Chinese-made weapons. You know, Soviet-made weapons are good quality and cheap, and have the title of the king of cost-effectiveness in the arms industry. Although China's current weapons and equipment are not bad, in terms of cost-effectiveness, the international community still recognizes Soviet-made weapons. Can you tell me why? Li Qing asked curiously. The bearded man glanced at Li Qing. Do you know about the Iran-Iraq War in the 1980s? Li Qing touched his chin and nodded. In the Iran-Iraq War in the last century, China sold weapons to two countries, and the two countries fought to the end with Chinese-made weapons. And it was rare that on the battlefield, Type 69 tanks faced Type 69 tanks, Type 56 automatic rifles faced Type 56 automatic rifles, and in the sky, J-6 faced J-6. This battle has made all the people in the Middle East realize the advantage of Chinese weapons, cheap. Li Qing felt quite proud before, after all, the use of Chinese weapons in the Iran-Iraq War represented the advanced Chinese weapons to a certain extent. Unexpectedly, the big bearded man's words directly made Li Qing unable to do anything. No. Li Qing said unhappily. You don't even have Chinese weapons, what kind of arms dealer are you? The big bearded man was talking to Li Qing on the surface, but secretly he was giving orders to his subordinates with his fingers. Li Qing was not stupid, and knew his intentions, but Li Qing had been stalling for time. SHH. The sudden push on the back made the big bearded man's face change drastically. Quick, quick to detonate the bomb. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 398. At this time, Li Qing, Gao Jin, Zhang Dongxiu, and Crow attacked at the same time. Especially Li Qing, whose movements were so fast that there were traces of after-images. But Li Qing's goal was also very clear, and he rushed directly to the short, curly-haired young man. Because he smelled the smell of ammonium nitrate on the man, which was very pungent, with a sour smell mixed with urine, which ordinary people could also smell. But ordinary people don't have such a sensitive nose as Li Qing, and can clearly smell which person it is on. The short curly-haired man looked nervous, holding the remote control in his hand. When he heard the shouting of the bearded man, his hand subconsciously began to exert force. But in the next second, the whole arm began to feel tearing pain, and then the arm lost consciousness. Ah! The shrill scream resounded throughout the cabin. The other passengers who became the background board saw it clearly from beginning to end. They saw Li Qing running towards the bandits at a speed that ordinary people could not reach. Then there was the bloody scene of Li Qing tearing the arm of the next robber. The robber's blood gushed out from the broken arm with white bone stumps, and the curly-haired robber couldn't help but fall to the ground and roll. Such a bloody scene made some passengers feel uncomfortable in their stomachs, squatting down and retching. Only this bomb is real, the others are fake. Li Qing squatted down and took the bomb from the robber, saying loudly. At this time, Zhang Dongxiu and Crow had just arrived at the robber's side. After hearing Li Qing's words, they had no scruples in their hearts. They directly started a multi-to-multi group fight with the robbers. These people in the Middle East were obviously trained, but it was only elementary training. Compared with the two people who have been on the streets for many years, there is still a big gap. Especially Zhang Dongxiu, he killed one with a slap, which was too easy. Gao Jin was not idle either. He made a knife flower on his hand, and skillfully cut the tendons of the bearded man with a dog-leg knife. Then he started to attack the robbers. The knife in his hand flashed with a cold light, and he directly cut open the chest of the robber on the opposite side, and the internal organs inside flowed all over the floor. Li Qing smiled, dropped the broken arm in his hand, and returned to Mao Xianmin. Now he didn't need to take action. Although Mao Xianmin knew her man's ability, she still touched Li Qing up and down with worry. After confirming that Li Qing was not injured, she breathed a sigh of relief. I was scared to death. I'm glad you're okay. The flight attendant who knew Chinese not far from her was speechless, but kept muttering in her heart, it should be the other side that is in trouble. The battle did not last long. Li Qing's men were all people who had experienced war and had no habit of holding back. The purpose of starting was to kill. After a while, there were no standing robbers in the entire cabin. They were either cut by Gao Jin or had their hands and feet broken by Crow. In comparison, the person who was beaten into a fool by Zhang Dongxiu was the luckiest. Seeing the robbers being dealt with by Li Qing and others, the passengers gradually put their minds at ease. However, seeing the bloody scene on the ground, they were a little afraid of Li Qing and others. But some people were very interested in Li Qing and others, and looked like they wanted to talk to them. Who are you? You are definitely not an ordinary arms dealer. The bearded man asked angrily as he watched his men being dealt with one by one. Because his tendons were cut, his hands drooped and he could not use any strength. I'm just an arms dealer. If you need Chinese weapons, I can also help coordinate. But the price may be a little higher, after all, the middleman also has to make a profit. Li Qing looked at the bearded man and said jokingly. The bearded man looked at Li Qing with resentment, and his expression wished he could kill Li Qing 100 times. Li Qing ignored him and turned to comfort Mao Xianmin. After all, she was scared just now. Excuse me, sir. The blond middle-aged man just now came to Li Qing with a smile. Thank you for saving us and everyone on the plane. Anyone with a discerning eye can see what these Middle Easterners want to do. If Li Qing hadn't taken action, the plane would definitely not be in a good condition. Li Qing glanced at him, smiled politely and nodded, "You're welcome, I'm just saving myself." Li Qing told the truth. If the robbers didn't endanger the people around him, he wouldn't bother to take action. Was that kung fu just now? The blond man gestured with both hands. Just take it as it is. Li Qing casually perfunctorily said. The blond man also saw that Li Qing didn't want to talk, smiled awkwardly, took out a business card from his pocket, and handed it over with both hands. What's your name, sir? This is my business card. If you need anything, please call me at any time. Li Qing took the gold-plated business card and glanced at the name on it, Steve Wozniak. Well, my name is Li Qing. Li Qing answered politely. His business card is not something that anyone can get. Li Qing. New World Li Qing. Steve didn't say anything, but the bearded man who was sitting on the ground shouted in surprise. The bearded man succeeded in attracting Li Qing's attention. Do you know me? The bearded man had a gloomy face, pursed his lips tightly and said nothing. He never thought that he would meet the leader of the New World, Li Qing, here. If he had known, he would have chosen the next flight. Well, do you need me to use force? Li Qing smiled and looked at the bearded man. Gao Jin grinned at this time, holding a dog-leg knife and slowly walked over. The big bearded man's cheek twitched, and he said in a muffled voice, I didn't expect to meet you here, I admit defeat. Haha, who doesn't know the New World, the overlord of Southeast Asian gangs? Li Qing's eyes moved. The Middle East? Will it have anything to do with the mysterious elder? The elder of the high table? Li Qing asked tentatively, but his eyes were on the big bearded man's face, wanting to see his reaction. But to his disappointment, the big bearded man didn't react at all when he heard the word elder. What elder? The big bearded man asked with a puzzled look. Li Qing didn't say anything, because he observed very carefully. The big bearded man didn't even have a change in his pupils, which meant that he probably didn't know about elders. The plane began to descend, and the flight attendant reminded everyone to return to their seats and fasten their seat belts. The passengers tiptoed around the scene that looked like a slaughterhouse and returned to their seats. After a period of turbulence, the plane landed steadily. Li Qing could see the flashing lights from afar through the window. There were many beautiful country faubourgs waiting at the end of the runway. It was not until the plane stopped that Li Qing learned from the flight attendants that the plane had landed in Wind City. Bang! The door of the plane was opened, and the fully armed faubourgs rushed in. But when they saw everything in the first-class cabin, they were stunned. Because except for the bearded man, the others who were still alive on the ground had been killed by several of Li Qing's men. WTF? The faubourgs who led the team took off his helmet and blurted out. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 399. What is going on? Looking at the dead bodies on the ground, Fu Bol asked in surprise. At this time, the captain finally came out of the cockpit and walked up to Phoboli with the flight attendant and told him something. Fu Bol's eyes looked in the direction of Li Qing and others from time to time, with an expression of disbelief on his face. After listening to the narrative and knowing that there was no danger in the cabin, they began to organize the passengers to get off the plane. Excuse me, sir. I may ask you to cooperate with the investigation later. As soon as Li Qing, Mao Xianmin and others stepped off the plane, they were stopped by a team of Phoboli, who politely asked a few people to cooperate with their investigation. Li Qing nodded. He knew that he must find out the situation from himself. This was a necessary procedure. Several people were invited to the police station closest to the airport. Although they were assisting in the investigation, Li Qing and others received different courtesy from others. When Fu Bol saw them, he nodded at them kindly. This made Crow and the others, who had always been on the opposite side of the note, feel somewhat unnatural. Li Qing was also puzzled, but this doubt was quickly solved. Hello, Mr. Li Qing. I am FBI Senior Agent Chris. A man dressed like a black special police officer opened the door and walked in, greeting Li Qing directly. Obviously, they had clearly investigated Li Qing's identity in a short period of time. Hello. Li Qing curled his lips. No one expected that the originally hostile parties would meet so harmoniously. Chris adjusted his suit and his face became serious. Mr. Li Qing, on behalf of the American Bureau of Investigation, I would like to thank you for everything you have done. Chris bowed solemnly to Li Qing. Li Qing raised his eyebrows slightly, then frowned. It seemed that the matter was more serious than he thought. You're welcome, Mr. Kress. I just happened to be there, and I was saving myself. If you don't mind, I'd also like to know the situation. Chris looked at Li Qing and was silent for a moment. Actually, you will know it soon if I don't tell you. The hijackers were not just one team, but 5 teams. 2 of them have crashed into the Twin Towers, and 2 others have been crashed. The one you are sitting on is the only one that has landed safely. Li Qing's heart sank when he heard this. It turned out to be an attack on the Twin Towers. It's chaos, it's all chaos, there is no timeline at all. He knew that the so-called crash was actually shot down by a missile, but the United States did not want to be accused of attacking a civilian airliner. Li Qing pursed his lips tightly. He finally knew why Fu Bol thanked him. Because Li Qing left them the only survivor of this incident, Li Qing believed that the big beard would be a breakthrough point. Furbali will pry everything he knows out of the bearded man's mouth. Not only did you save the 125 people on the plane, but you also prevented the plane from crashing into the hexagon. Apparently the bearded hijacking mission was to fly to Syracuse and attack the hexagon. You are a hero. Chris said seriously. Li Qing was suddenly speechless and wanted to laugh. He didn't expect that he would become the hero of the beautiful people. This somewhat goes against my original intention. After holding it in for a long time, Li Qing finally said, "Thank you. Next, I have a few more questions to ask you." Chris was actually very curious in his heart, how on earth these people were able to deal with the Middle Eastern robbers who had strapped bombs to themselves. According to the information provided by the forensic doctor, the robbers were killed in a short period of time, or their bones were buckled, or their bodies were disemboweled. One of the robbers, in particular, had his entire arm torn off, which was simply beyond what human beings could do. Well, you say. Li Qing made a gesture of invitation. Did you know in advance that these Middle Easterners were carrying dangerous goods? Chris asked a lot about the hijacking, and Li Qing gave his explanation in a clear and logical manner. As an old Buddha, Chris knew from Li Qing's expression and verbal description that he had nothing to do with the time of the hijacking. It was also by chance that we got on the same plane. Chris finally breathed a sigh of relief. He knew that Li Qing, as the warlord of Java, had a nuclear warhead. If it is related to this terrorist attack, it would be a huge event. Ahem, last question, is Mr. Li Qing really good at Kung Fu? Chris made a classic Bruce Lee pose while saying, "Don't get me wrong, this question is purely to satisfy my curiosity." He heard from the passengers on the plane that the man in front of him tore off the robber's arm, a cruel bunch. Li Qing gave him a slightly funny look, and he decided to scare the Buddha and let him know that Huaguo's Kung Fu was indeed unique. Li Qing did not speak, but stretched out his right hand and flashed it in front of Chris's eyes, and then slowly put his right hand back on the table. The table in front of me is made of redwood, which is common in the beautiful country, and is very hard. Chris watched in surprise as Li Qing's right hand slowly sank into the table, while the expression on Li Qing's face was still relaxed, as if he didn't use any force. Until Li Qing raised his right hand, he saw deep palm prints on the table. Chris looked at the palm prints on the table in surprise, then looked up at Li Qing and muttered to himself, "Kung Fu, Chinese Kung Fu." He touched the palm print in disbelief, and the hard touch told him that it was not tofu, but real hardwood. Incredible, miraculous Kung Fu. Mr. Li Qing, I think. Li Qing knew what Chris wanted to say without having to guess. "No, if you don't want to, there's no point in thinking about it." What Li Qing said is true. Others can learn Fenyuxio's skills. But Fenyuxio can't do the skill of Li Qing, unless others also have a system. Ahem. Chris was choked directly by Li Qing's words and coughed for a while. Is there anything else? If not, we have to find a place to rest. After all, such a big thing happened and everyone was shocked. Li Qing looked at Chris with a smile. Crow behind him pretended to be injured and held his chest, Zhang Dongzhi rubbed his temples as if he had a headache, and Gao Jin also held his stomach. When Chris heard this, he had a black streak in his head. He was obviously very energetic when he first came in, but now he looks like a Yandere. To whom can he show it? He also knew that it was not the right time to talk to Li Qing about other things. "Okay, thank you for your cooperation. The main reason is that Li Qing really has nothing to do with this matter, and he can't find a reason to keep it for a long time." Li Qing, Mao Xianmin, and others had just walked out of the police station. The look on his face became serious. Now things were getting serious. Others didn't know it, but he knew that Yingjiang started a war after this incident. What Li Xin was thinking about was what could he do in this war. He suspected that there was something not so simple behind this matter. There were rumors in his previous life that Pyramid had told Yingjiang about this matter a long time ago. Yingjiang deliberately concealed the truth in order to have a reason to intervene in the Middle East. But Li Qing had to carefully consider where to drink some soup with Yingjiang. After all, Yingjiang was not easy to get along with. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 400. The attack on the Twin Towers has had an increasing impact as time goes on. In particular, this incident was the first time that the beautiful country suffered a terrorist attack on its own soil, which brought great panic to the people of the beautiful country. Nearly 3,000 people died in this incident, and the entire beautiful country was immersed in grief. As can be expected, a counterattack is quietly brewing. But these have little impact on Li Qing and others. He has no sympathy for the beautiful Chinese people, so he has no feelings about this matter. According to the original plan, he continued to accompany Mao Xianmin to Angel City to discuss business. Li Qing sat on the sofa in the hotel and looked at Mao Xianmin, who came through the door with a frown on his face. What? Didn't it go well? Li Qing asked curiously. He knew that Mao Xianmin's business talents had gained a lot during the takeover battle during the financial crisis in South Korea. Mao Xianmin dropped the leather bag in his hand and leaned against Li Qing with a tired look on his face. The other party does not agree to the terms of cooperation and wants to use barrier technology in exchange for our shares in New World Electronics. Mao Xianmin sighed. A small company on the other side was so open-minded. Li Qing frowned. Which company? He generally doesn't care about business matters. What he cares about is whether his woman is happy or not. Mao Xianmin would not have such emotions just because the cooperation failed. There is not just one chip company in the world. Although the American one is advanced, the German one is not necessarily much worse. Mao Xianmin retracted his whole body into Li Qing's arms and said lazily, "Banana." Made. Li Qing couldn't hold back when he heard these two names and cursed out loud. This banana was very weird in its previous life. It sold mobile phones without including chargers and headphones. Eventually, unscrupulous domestic mobile phones followed suit. Mao Xianmin was stunned for a moment when he heard Li Qing's curse. Have you heard of it? No, just by hearing the name, you can tell that this company is not a good company. It's called a banana. Why don't you call it an apple? Mao Xianmin knew that Li Qing was joking, so he smiled and patted his belly. Well, I'll go with you tomorrow, Li Qing said softly. Hey, aren't you very impatient with these? Mao Xianmin asked strangely. She also knew that Li Qing usually didn't participate in such trivial matters, as it was too complicated. You must know that this is the first round of negotiations, and there will be N rounds until the conditions proposed are acceptable to both parties, or neither party accepts them. I'm very interested this time. I want to know more about it. Okay, let's go take a shower. Li Qing patted Mao Xianmin, causing a moment of coquettishness. Seeing Mao Xianmin stand up and walk upstairs, Li Qing's face calmed down, but he didn't actually take the company's affairs seriously. However, the Twin Towers incident had a bigger impact than he thought. Winston called yesterday and the New World Hotel is now fully booked. Not only did the wealthy gang leaders arrange for their families to stay at the New World Hotel, but even the rich brought their families to stay. As a result, the New World Hotel is operating at full capacity, and of course it is making money as fast as a printing press. Li Qing touched his forehead. The situation at the New World Hotel was not in line with his plan. His purpose is not to make money, but to win over the underground forces from all over the United States to the maximum extent and quietly poach the corners of the high table. But this is a good opportunity for expansion, Li Qing said to himself with a smile. Dongziu, let the brothers in Gotham City start taking action to acquire high-end hotels in major cities in the beautiful country and transform them into New World hotels on the spot. Li Qing directly called Zhang Dongziu from next door and gave instructions. Although things were rushed, opportunities waited for no one, and he wanted to seize the market before the high table could react. As for the issue of limiting passenger flow in the future, just learn from mainland hotels and use special gold coins. Zhang Dongziu nodded and hurried down to make arrangements. Li Qing also quickly contacted Alex and Jaina to establish New World hotels in major cities, and their help was indispensable. Alex and Jaina realized from Li Qing's words that this might be an opportunity for the development of New World Hotel, and they also strongly supported it, saying that they would send someone to cooperate. Now Alex has become the leader of the mafia of the beautiful country. Alex, who had just taken office, was in high spirits. He did not hesitate at all to Li Qing's request. He is also eager to make some achievements and show those opponents. Honey, do you want to sit on the couch all night? After Mao Xianmin took a shower, she put on her suspender pajamas and curled her fingers at Li Qing seductively. Li Qing stood up and locked the door, sighing, "You really don't care about food and fights. Don't call me daddy for a while." Humph. Mao Xianmin rolled his eyes and snorted to express his dissatisfaction. In this way, Mao Xianmin didn't say a complete sentence for half the night. Early the next morning, Mao Xianmin, who was nourished and in high spirits, pulled the dazed Li Qing out of bed. The two simply had some Western breakfast at the hotel and then drove towards the banana company in the car. Li Qing stepped out of the car and looked at the half-bitten banana logo. It's still so low, even the logo is incomplete. Mao Xianmin didn't hear clearly, so he turned his head and asked, "Brother Qing, what did you say?" "It's okay. I said this company is good and there is a chance to acquire it," Li Qing said with a smile. Actually, Li Qing was not joking, because the sign above said the Banana Computer Company of the United States, not the Banana Company. This means that the current banana is far from the level of the previous life, and if there is a chance, it must be bought. Mao Xianmin smiled and said nothing, thinking that Li Qing was joking, because there was no need to acquire this company at all. The most advanced technology of this company is chip technology, and it is also a computer company. If it weren't for the advanced chips, such companies would be a lot. The two walked in with Gao Jin, Zhang Dongziu and others and came to a not-so-large conference room. The conference room was full of the negotiation team of New World Electronics. When they saw Li Qing coming in, they all stood up at the same time and bowed respectfully to greet him. Is this the mysterious big boss? It's worthy of being a big boss. Only such a man can be worthy of President Mao. Keep your voice down, that's a legendary figure. That's right, I heard that the Kinman Group is also owned by this person. You don't want to live. The employees of New World Electronics discussed in a very low voice. Normal people can't hear them talking, but Li Qing can hear them, but he doesn't care. After all, they are his subordinates. Li Qing is quite tolerant of his own people. Well, everyone sit down, Li Qing said with a smile. He also sat in the C position with Mao Xianmin and Crow and others sat behind him.